The Manipal Academy of Higher Education, MAHE, presents the Book Brahma Literature Festival 2025, a celebration where words find wings and stories weave the fabric of a shared imagination. Session is Drawn Words, Graphic Novels in South Indian Languages. I would like to invite Appu Pen, graphic artist known for sharp satire and visual storytelling. Fabien Toulme, French cartoonist weaving emotion and politics through art. Joshy Benedict, Kerala-based creator of rich visual narratives, and J. Unudurthi, myth-futurist storyteller redefining Indian comics. Our first session brings the visual and the verbal together. Drawn Words explores the growing world of graphic novels in South Indian languages. Please welcome our panelists.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And it's a warm welcome to all of you. And I think the introductions have already been made, so I don't have to go over them again. And we have, I thought I'll just start by asking Fabien, because he's here on a very interesting art residency where, if I understand correctly, an artist from France comes to India and either works with a writer here or works on your own project. I think based in India or based in Bangalore, and he's been here for I think a month and a half. So I just want to know what his impressions are and whether how did anything flow out of it or any ideas come out of his stay in Bangalore.
Okay, hello. I'm a comic book artist for about 10 years in France. For the moment, no comic book published in India, but I hope it will come soon. I mainly work on reports and documentaries through comic book. And 4 years ago, I started a series. The name in French is Reflection of the World. And the idea of that project is to travel in different countries to explore some thematics and understand how do people live that thematics in different countries. I made a book of that series, and the thematic was activism. So I went in 3 countries to talk about that thematic of activism. I went in Lebanon, Brazil, and Benin in Africa. After I made a book that talks about work, the way that people work, and went to United States, Korea, and Comore. It's South Africa. And now I'm here in Bangalore to make a new book of that series, and the thematic of that book is love and couple, because I wanted to explore and understand how do people live in couple, how do people meet, how do people separate, sometimes they separate, it happens, and I wanted to understand here in India, so I'm here to work on that thematic here in Bangalore, meeting some people, making some interviews, and after there will be a comic book that talks about that.
I'm kind of curious because you have to, so you're writing for a French audience, if I understand correctly, or not an Indian audience. So how do you find comics as a medium? Because you need to explain the background and the context, fairly quickly through maybe 4 or 5 panels in a page, and get that across to an audience who maybe not be familiar at all, like let's say something like an arranged marriage, which is a common thing in India, which maybe not be something very, you have to explain what that is. So how do you get around that?
So really the idea of that comic book that I do is I don't want to explain. When you travel, when you meet someone, when someone share the experience with you of the life, even if you don't know the context, even if you don't know the history maybe of the country, you can understand something of that history. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm meeting some people, I'm listening to their stories, and I'm telling their stories to a French audience. I will not explain each detail of why, how, and what everything means, why is arranged marriage, what is the story of India. That is not the subject. The subject is more like on the human aspect. How do people live that type of thing? And I really believe that when you tell a story, it brings with that story a lot of things that everybody can understand. And I don't want to do like a didactical book. I want only to tell stories of the people. And even if you live in France, even if you live, I don't know, in the United States, and you read that type of human stories, it will touch you because there are something that, despite of the cultural context, that are really universal. The way that we are feeling love, the way that we are living some bad experiences, and that's the idea of that book.
That's an interesting idea of this universality. So I think I'll just I want to move on to Apupan, because he had mentioned that the way of you try to convey something universal in terms of emotions and so on. And if I understand correctly, your previous book was something on AI and very high technology, very at the cutting edge. And the one which you've just finished is something to do with bullfighting in rural. It's out already. So how do you how do you switch between these projects which seem to be completely different from each other?
I think as a storyteller, you want to like address different ideas, different ways of telling stories, and I usually concentrate on there's a fantasy world that I've been building for like 15, 20 years now. It's called Hala Hala, and sometimes I feel like a little trapped inside Hala Hala. It is the place I escape to, but it's also become like the sustenance right now. So these ideas were collaborations. So I was at a residency in France for a while, and there was pretty much nothing happening. So I was really looking for a project to pick up over there, and I met a AI scientist over there who had some really insightful takes on AI, which I think a lot of tech people don't really talk about, like the negative aspects or the critical aspects of it. So I worked on that with him, and the whole idea was to capture France, capture like moods or people in France. And I realized I'm used to like drawing Indian faces because I crowded with a lot of lines and and if I do that to a French person's illustration, that person looks really old or something. But if I do it to an Indian face, it doesn't. So there were many things in the drawings and all that, it just came up along the way. Since I was there, I was able to do it for some time, or represent what I was seeing. So it might be like a little bit of a newcomer's take on France, but Laurent was there to help me. So I was staying with him, and I saw even his house comes in the book, and his wife. So it was a very collaborative thing like that. Then came Vadivasal. Vadivasal is with Perumal Murugan. He's also around somewhere. So for that, you have to go to Madurai and see a Jallikattu happening. I went to 3 different places where Jallikattu is happening. Alanganallur, Palamedu, and one more. So there it's a totally different kind of chaos, and I thought it was really interesting to do a French setting and then straight away jump into the chaos in Madurai with this Jallikattu scene happening. So it was very different, and it was a kind of a challenge I took on myself. I think it worked. It's okay. I can get the mood of the Tamil people or that extra emotion in the Jallikattu arena. So those were the factors over there, and of course the bull. So adapt yourself to different settings, and both these I got to write quite detailed. Dream Machine I wrote myself. This one was written by Perumal Vadivasal, but I got to work on the English translation. So it really grew into my scene. It was very satisfying that way. Thanks, Jay.
And I mean, you'd mentioned Hala Hala. So that has been something which it's like this, for those of you who came in late, so to speak, I think from Moonwards, right? Which was in 2008 or 2009. So it's been, it's this whole fantasy world that he has been creating and building brick by brick, all on your own. So he draws and writes it himself. And now you're working with collaborators and so on. So how was that switch? Or do you, after this, you're like, no, I want to get back to my own world? Or is it interesting opening up new dimensions working with collaborators?
It's both are nice, but I am trying to get back to my own thing. I am working on one thing of my of expanding Hala Hala. I mean, You try to say that it's a fantasy world, but then if you have only 1.5 books, then how is it a world? So, the idea is to populate that world with like enough things. And in my head, like it's all connected in some way, but I have to like bring it out nicely. So, yes, I'm working on one of those. The collaborations are also good because, yes, it's a new territory. But to be fair, like, my collaborators were very sweet and nice. And I really enjoyed working with both of them. I mean, like, I've never worked with a scientist like that before. So it was quite nice to work with. Very smooth, easy. And then with Perumal, which was like another trip altogether because I can bounce off my storytelling skills with him, like I can suggest some things and see if Perumal accepts or not. Does he approve? So both ways it was really nice. I think so far, yeah, it's been good. I don't know about collaborations in general. I was very like scary about collaborations in the beginning. These two have been very good. Let's just say that.
And I mean, I would be amiss if I didn't mention the whole Rashtriya Man series, which is something, I don't know if you've seen that. I think from a regular comic book reader, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but most people when they see your style, they would associate that with Rashtriya Man in the sense that because that's the most, it's shared, it's spread across social media and so on.
Thank you,
so
Jay.
how you I mean, I don't want to go into all the politics of it, but have you been stopped at airports much more often than you used to be, or?
It's not that popular. It's just, once in a while it gets viral and then the next day people forget about it. So it's okay, and also most of the stuff is in English. That's also another reason why it's not censored so much, I think. If it was in Hindi and if it was reaching out to a lot of people, then maybe more censorship. But a lot of political cartoonists across the country are facing worse situations. So, it's not, I mean, it's as a comic artist, as a cartoonist, you're just like documenting stuff. It's not activism. It's not like, not trying to change the world or anything. It's just what you've been seeing and doing. That's all. Newspaper cartoons have been there forever. But now if you do some newspaper cartoon also, you're like political. So it's just the perception that has changed. The things we're doing are the same. And I hope that we can continue doing it for a longer time.
All right. So let me turn the mic over to Joshy, Benedict. So I had the good fortune of reviewing his book for the Frontline. So normally they say that critics and authors should never meet, or it's like matter and antimatter. But I think, I really enjoyed it. It's basically, I read it in the English translation. So it's something which is set in rural Kerala about this person who has a kind of a gambling compulsion. So he's married and everything, but he also has, he has to look after his family and, look after his career and so on. But he has this kind of a thing where he goes to this island and gambles with a bunch of people there. I'm just giving a very brief description. One of the things which I found very interesting in that, in the way you visually created that world, was that it's, so you have a bit of mountains, you have a bit of the coast, you have a bit of the island, you have a bit of the fields. The landscape is not settled. The person is not settled. He's always, unsure of himself. He always doubts himself. I found it very interesting how the environment of Kerala, the different parts of that, and this interior landscape, they kind of came together. So how did that something, were you working on that, or did it just emerge out of the work naturally?
നാട്ടിൽ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ള ചില ആൾക്കാരിൽ നിന്നും പ്രചോദനം ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട് ശരിക്കും കഥ ഉണ്ടാകുമ്പോൾ. പക്ഷെ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും അതാണെന്നും പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അതുകൊണ്ട് പിന്നെ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ള പ്രകൃതി ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴായാലും ചുറ്റുവട്ടങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴും ആൾക്കാരെ ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടിട്ടുള്ള കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങളുടെ സ്വാധീനം ഏതായാലും അതിനകത്ത് ഉണ്ടാവുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും അതല്ല താനും. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ ഇതിൽ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും ഞാൻ ഭാവനയിൽ നിന്ന് ഉണ്ടാക്കിയതാണെന്നും പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല, പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും റിയൽ ആണെന്നും പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. രണ്ടും കൂടെ മിക്സ് ചെയ്ത് വന്നിട്ടുള്ള സംഗതിയാണ്. കാരണം ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു പ്രകൃതിയുടെ ഒരു ഭാഗം കാണിച്ചിട്ട് എനിക്കത് എൻ്റെ നാട്ടിലെ ഒരു ഭാഗം അതിനകത്തുണ്ടെന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റും. പക്ഷേ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട് അതായിരിക്കണം എന്നില്ല. ഇപ്പോൾ ക്യാരക്ടേഴ്സ് നായകനായാലും അയാളും പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും അത് തന്നെ അയാൾക്ക് ഉദാഹരണമായിട്ട് ചിലപ്പം അയാളെ കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഉള്ള ഒരാളെ കാണിച്ചു തരാൻ പറ്റുമായിരിക്കും. അയാളുടെ കഥയ്ക്ക് ചിലപ്പോൾ ഇൻസ്പിറേഷനായ കുറേ സംഭവങ്ങൾ കാണിച്ചു തരാം. പക്ഷേ പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട് ഒരാളായിരിക്കണമെന്നില്ല അത്. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ വിചാരിക്കുന്നത് നമ്മൾ ഇൻസ്പിറേഷൻ നമുക്ക് റിയൽ ലൈഫിൽ നിന്ന് എടുക്കുക. അപ്പോഴാണ് കുറച്ചുകൂടി അത് സത്യസന്ധമാവാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ളത് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന സംഗതിക്ക്. കൂടാതെ നമ്മൾ ആ കണ്ട റിയൽ സംഭവത്തിൽ നിന്ന് കുറച്ച് നമ്മുടെ ആലോചനകളോട് ചേരുമ്പോഴാണ് അതൊരു നല്ല ഫിക്ഷനായി മാറുന്നത് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത്. അതാണ് എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത്.
How many people get Malayalam over here? Okay, so I'm not like a translator, but I'm just gonna like sum it up and say that it's basically a mix of things that affects him. It's not just reality, or it's not just like out of the blue imagination. So it always works better for Joshy when he's mixing a bit of the reality that he knows, and then build a story from there or something. I think so, Jay. Mostly it's happened is what he's saying. It's not like he's constructed it like that. And especially, this is a nice point you brought up about the landscape and the personality. I never connected it like that. And I think Joshy was also like kind of surprised to like hear that. So it's a nice observation you have. And he is that artist and critic in one. He writes reviews and he makes work also. So yeah, that's the kind of thing he was talking about. Yeah, go for the next question.
So I mean, it's a very very rural, very rooted kind of earthy kind of theme. In India or in general, I would say this whole theme of graphic novels is like it's something like the metropole. It's something from Delhi or from Bombay or something. It's a very urban phenomena. I know that you've read a lot of comics and so on. So was it something like, okay, I want to do something which is not in a city, which is not set in a big city, or with a lot of action and a lot of things happening. There's a lot of small, minute observations in a place which would normally not be covered, which is not graphic novel worthy, so to speak, because that's something which happens in the big city, right? At least in India, that's how either you have mythology adaptations or you have something happening to a 20-year-old in a big Delhi or something like that. That's generally what, maybe I'm a bit harsh, but generally that's the main theme that comes out.
എനിക്കറിയുന്ന പരിസരത്തിൻ്റെ കഥ പറയാമെന്നുള്ളത് മാത്രമാണ്. ഇപ്പം ചോദിച്ചതിന് നഗരത്തിനെ പറ്റി എനിക്ക് ഇപ്പോഴാണ് പരിചയമായി വന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അറിയുന്ന കാര്യം, അറിയുന്ന പശ്ചാത്തലത്തിൽ നമുക്ക് അറിയുന്ന കഥകൾ പറയാമെന്നുള്ളതാണ് സിമ്പിളായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യം. അപ്പോഴാണ് നമുക്കത് അതിനെപ്പറ്റി നമുക്ക് അറിയാൻ പറ്റുന്നതും പരിസരങ്ങൾ അറിയാൻ പറ്റുന്നതും പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ട്. നമ്മൾ അറിയുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യത്തെപ്പറ്റി പറയുക, ചിലപ്പോൾ ഇനി ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത് ചിലപ്പം നഗരം ചിലപ്പോൾ ഉണ്ടായേക്കാം.
He'd rather talk about what he knows, and this is the area that he knows, the space he knows. So he wouldn't go and like do a 20-year-old in a city like that, because he doesn't know that. But like maybe in the new work, he threatens that a city scene might appear because now he's getting exposed to cities through literature festivals where they do not organize translators for him, even though he's asked about it like many times before. At least 2 weeks back, I also asked for them.
Okay. So okay, I mean, I just want to throw the question to all of you. I mean, I'm going to start with you because I know that your workflow is quite interesting, because you, if I understand correctly, at least for the Big Flip, the original, you worked on paper, and then I think you actually then scanned it, and then you worked on the final stage. So it was an actual analog, so to speak, in the beginning. It was not directly done on a tablet or something like that. So I just want to ask all of you, I mean, starting with you, on your sort of a workflow, has it changed? And how do you how much of it is digital, how much of it is hand drawn, and I mean in the sense that on paper and so on. So yeah,
ഞാനിത് ചെയ്തത് ആദ്യം കഥ എഴുതി ഉണ്ടാക്കുക എന്നുള്ള സംഗതിയാണ്. ഇപ്പോൾ കഥ എഴുതിയതും വരച്ചതും ഞാൻ തന്നെ ആദ്യം കഥ എഴുതുക. അപ്പോൾ കഥ എഴുതാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഒരു 3 മാസത്തോളം എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ആ സമയത്ത് കഥ എഴുതുന്ന സമയത്ത് നമ്മളിത് ഗ്രാഫിക് നോവൽ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയാണെന്നുള്ള ധാരണ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അതിനോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ ആ സമയത്ത് പക്ഷേ കഥ എഴുതുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ആലോചിക്കുന്ന കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങളുണ്ടല്ലോ. ഇതിൻ്റെ കഥയുടെ തുടക്കം എന്തായിരിക്കണം, അതിൻ്റെ വാചകങ്ങൾ, ആദ്യത്തെ സെൻറ്റൻസ് എങ്ങനെ തുടങ്ങണം. അപ്പോൾ ആദ്യത്തെ സെൻറ്റൻസിൻ്റെ ആദ്യത്തെ വാക്ക് കിട്ടിയപ്പോൾ തന്നെയുള്ള ഒരു സന്തോഷമൊക്കെ ഞാൻ ഓർക്കുന്നുണ്ട് ഇപ്പോൾ. അപ്പോൾ അത് അന്ന് അതിലെ വാചകങ്ങൾ എന്താണ്, അതിൽ ഭാഷ എന്തായിരിക്കണം, പിന്നെ എങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ കഥ മുന്നോട്ട് പോകണം, അങ്ങനത്തെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ആലോചിച്ച് ഒരു കഥ എഴുതുന്ന രീതി തന്നെയാണ് അത് എഴുതിയത്. ആദ്യം കഥ എഴുതി 3 മാസം എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു ഏകദേശം. പിന്നീടാണ് ഞാൻ വരയ്ക്കാൻ തീരുമാനിച്ചത്. വരയ്ക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ആദ്യം കഥയെ നമ്മൾ വരയ്ക്കാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന പേജുകളെ ഒരു സ്ക്രിബിൾ രൂപത്തിൽ എല്ലാ പേജുകളും വരച്ചു പൂർണ്ണമായിട്ടും. അപ്പോൾ അപ്പോഴും നമുക്ക് ഈ എത്ര പേജ് ഉണ്ടാവും ഇതെന്നുള്ളൊരു ധാരണ കിട്ടി സ്ക്രിബിൾ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ. അപ്പോഴാണ് എനിക്കൊരു 112 പേജുകൾ ഉണ്ടെന്ന് മനസ്സിലായി. പിന്നീട് ആ സ്ക്രിബിളിനെ ബേസ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ഫൈനലായിട്ടുള്ള ഡ്രോയിങ് വരച്ചു. അത് ഓരോ ബോക്സുകളും ഓരോ പടങ്ങളായിട്ട് വരച്ചിട്ട് അതിനെ സ്കാൻ ചെയ്ത് കൊണ്ടുവന്നിട്ട് ഫോട്ടോഷോപ്പിൽ വന്നിട്ട് അതിനെ ഫോട്ടോഷോപ്പിനെ ഉപയോഗിച്ചത് ശരിക്കും ഇതിനെ പേജിനെ ഒന്നിച്ച് ആക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി മാത്രമേ ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളൂ. വരച്ചതും കളർ ചെയ്തെല്ലാം മാനുവലായിട്ട് പേപ്പറിൽ വരച്ചു, വാട്ടർ കളർ ഉപയോഗിച്ച് കളർ ചെയ്തു, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയാണ് ചെയ്തത്. അങ്ങനെയാണ് ചെയ്തുണ്ടാക്കിയത്. അല്ലല്ല.
So he started writing the story first, and once he wrote the story, there are many nuances that come in the story. So he got a little lost on that, or like went in that zone for a bit, and then he came down to like realizing it's a graphic novel script, and then he worked out the basic like storyboard with pencils, and then finalizing the art with watercolor and scanning each part. So my question was like whether he did the whole page in one shot, because if you see the artwork, if you see the book, it kind of flows, like the panels like really flow, and I really like the use of like negative space that he's got where he's put the text and everything. So he must really have this plan in his head, otherwise he can't really do that in different pieces of like paper and scan it and bring it together. I think that would be tough, but that's how he did it. There were nice little like touches in the way he said it, but I've forgotten all of that. So that's all I'm translating right now. And for my process, 3 months to write the story. First line he got, and he was very happy. That joy of like having that first line of the book. Oh, not even the line, just the word. Yeah. You know, he was like fully happy. And then after that, like every word, he was like getting really happy. And then he said, okay, stop being so happy. Just like do the work and all that. So then for me, I've been, same way, the story is first for me too. I think it has to serve the story, whatever we draw. So like I try to change the style of the artwork. Like Jai was asking earlier, like, you know, Vadivasal and Dream Machine and my earlier work, each of them, sometimes it's a funny work. So you got to get the tone of that humor or that softness of the humor in there. Dream Machine is like very serious, and I want the work to be taken seriously. So I've tried to make it seem a little more real than a cartoonist work, you know, so that you buy the reality as it is. And because at the end we're going to say that, you know, AI is going to come and like screw the world over, and you're going to lose your job and things like that, and worse. So it's nicer if you take it seriously. So that style was sort of managed and changed to put the message across more effectively. Right now I'm working on adventure fantasy kind of thing. So it's more of the heroism of it, the adventure, the characters in the forest and animals and things like that. So it brings its own mood. And I think once you like write the story, like Joshy said, the story's in your head and you start thinking in that zone, then this sort of like vocabulary, this visual vocabulary sort of starts forming around it, I think. I used to like draw on paper and do the scanning and like watercolor and that kind of stuff before. But in 2019, I found this iPad. And from then, I've been doing that. And it's been kind of easy, actually, in a guilty way. I'm saying it like, you know, I want to get back to paper and do some original art kind of thing. But this thing is much easier. And you know, I have to do some work here today. So I would just bring my iPad and I can sit with it. Otherwise, there's like A3 size paper, ink and all. I used to travel with it. It's a mess. You know, I've like spoiled 2-3 of my original pages because I was traveling and ink spilt on it and got bent to the edges. So none of that happens now. But yeah, maybe sometime, you know, by the time like the value of original art picks up in India and people want to buy original art and all that, you know, I want to do some original art things also. Right now, there's not much point in that because comics, this low art form called comics in India, is struggling to like find its feet and like survive. And you know, if all of you support, I'm sure like, you know, comics will become a huge thing soon enough. So thanks, Jay.
Thank you. So, how do I work? In fact, I am like a self-made comic book man. So I never studied in art school. So along my career, I changed a lot of things on my work. At the beginning, I used to draw on paper, but it was a bit how do I say, long. My comic books are with a lot of pages. We call it a graphic novel. They have a lot of pages, and when you draw on paper, it can be very long to draw, and after to, how do we say, to erase with a. And I was with a arm that was hurting my arm. Yes, so I began using like an iPad, and it went really faster. And I do all the work on my comic book. That means I write the story, and after I draw. And as I said, I make a report, but I also make fiction. So when you work on a fiction and when you work on a report, it's a bit different. It seems like the same thing at the end. It's a comic book, but the work is different, mainly on the writing part. So maybe I'm going, as I'm here to make a report, I'm going to explain a little bit how I work on a report. So before coming here in India, I already knew the subject I wanted to tell. I already had an idea of that angle of the story I wanted to tell. So I wrote like a pre-scenario. I don't know how to say. I choose some profile that I wanted to interview because my story is based on that interview. So I already know more or less the structure of my report. So when I arrived here, I tried to find some people that can match with the profile that I was looking for. I make the interview. It's about 2 hours of interview with each people that I'm interviewing. And after I write down the interview that I made of the people, and I'm making, I think, like a documentary. I'm selecting some moments of the interview that can illustrate what I want to show, what I want to tell. I'm putting inside the report my impressions on the moment that I share with the people. I'm putting impressions of what I'm seeing in India. So it's like a mix of interview, journalism, how do we say? I don't know the English word. Carnet de voyage, the travel diary, that kind of thing. And after that, I make like a mix of all that thing that I have collected during the report. I'm going to draw, and for each book, more or less, it's like 1 year of work. So that's it. I don't know if I answered all the question, but that's my answer.
You had mentioned Bangalore. The other day I spent 4 hours in the traffic from the airport, so I'm still kind of traumatized. So I was just wondering if what are the kind of impressions which visually kind of come into your narrative after spending 1 month here?
Okay. So as I said previously, I traveled a lot, and I think when you travel a lot, your feeling about the things that you see is less accurate. I don't know how to say, but I'm losing a little bit of maybe purity when I am traveling in a new place. It's like a mix of a lot of things that I saw in other countries. When I arrived here, I saw like a mix of Lebanon, of Brazil, of some places in Africa that I went. So in a very visual aspect, for me, it's like a mix of all that things. But there are some things that are very Indian. You mentioned the traffic jam. I would say it's something. The noise. Here is the noise is very present. It's very here. You can see a lot of noise. You can see you have a bird. I spent, I think, 2 weeks to discover what is that bird. It's a cuckoo. At the beginning, I thought it was like a monkey, but I discovered it was a bird. There is the horn. There is a lot of noise, and I think I like the chaotic places, and I feel really well in India. And for me, the thing that makes me that marks me the most, I don't know if it's correct what I'm saying, sorry, it's the people. The people are so nice, very open, very you can talk with everybody in the street. It's really easy. So to do my work, to make interview, it's like a dream country, because you come, you begin to ask something to somebody, and he's going to go further that you could have imagined making that interview. If I compare with like Korea, when I went to Korea, it was so hard to make an interview because people are more close. So for me, maybe the thing that I discovered here and what I like the most is the people. They are really nice and I like it.
Oh, sorry, as I think we're kind of coming close. So I'll just have another quick question before we throw the floor open. So I know for a fact that I think when you had started off, you had some issues finding a publisher, and in fact, I think you put up your work on Facebook, and then it kind of went viral, and then sorry to Mr. Joshy, and then that's how the interest came about. So, and you mentioned that you took a year to make one of the novels. So basically, though it seems simple, creating graphic novels is a very time-consuming process, and having them printed is also quite a challenge because by the very nature they are quite expensive, and printing costs, especially in recent times in India, have shot up enormously. So there is like a kind of a difficulty in getting your story across, or what story which the publisher thinks will sell or will not sell is like there is some kind of filtering which is happening. How do you kind of sense that, or is there a way of getting around that, and what's like the mood of that basically? This is for all of you basically.
മലയാളത്തിൽ പബ്ലിഷറെ കിട്ടുക എന്നുള്ളതൊരു ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുള്ള കാര്യം തന്നെയാണ് ഇപ്പോഴും. ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ആദ്യത്തെ ഗ്രാഫിക് നോവൽ ചെയ്തിട്ട് അത് പബ്ലിഷ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് മലയാളത്തിലെ പ്രമുഖരായിട്ടുള്ള പബ്ലിഷേഴ്സിൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് പോയിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അവർ വർക്ക് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ട്, പക്ഷേ അവർ പറയുന്നത് അവർക്കത് ബിസിനസ് എന്ന രീതിയിൽ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ അത് മെച്ചമാവുന്നില്ല, അതുകൊണ്ട് അത് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ലെന്ന് അവർ പറയുന്നില്ല, ചെയ്യാമെന്ന് പറയും, പക്ഷേ അത് ഒരിക്കലും നടക്കുന്നില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയാണ് ഞാനത് സ്വന്തം പബ്ലിഷ് ചെയ്യാമെന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചത്. സ്വന്തം പബ്ലിഷ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ പ്രിൻറ്റ് ചെയ്യണം, അതിൻ്റെ സാമ്പത്തികം കണ്ടുപിടിക്കണം, അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനത്തെ കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്. ഏതായാലും ഇത് ഗ്രാഫിക് നോവൽ ചെയ്യുന്നത് നമുക്ക് ഒരു ജീവിതമാർഗമായിട്ട് എടുക്കാനോ ഒന്നും പറ്റില്ല. അത് നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ആഗ്രഹ പൂർത്തീകരണം എന്നുള്ള മട്ടിൽ നിൽക്കാനേ പറ്റുള്ളൂ. അങ്ങനെ അവസ്ഥയുണ്ട്. അത് കേരളത്തിൽ പ്രത്യേകിച്ചുണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യ മുഴുവൻ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ വന്നാൽ കുറേ, ഇപ്പം എൻ്റെ പുസ്തകം ആദ്യത്തെ പുസ്തകം ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലേക്ക് ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് ചെയ്തപ്പോഴാണ് കുറേ ആൾക്കാരിലേക്ക് എത്തുകയും കുറേ ഇത് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായത് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ വരുമ്പോൾ കുറേ ഇത് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുമുണ്ട്, കുറേ ആൾക്കാർ കാണുന്നുമുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ മലയാളത്തിൽ വീണ്ടും ആവശ്യക്കാർ വരികയും ചെയ്തു. പിന്നെ ഇപ്പം കുറച്ച് മൂവ്മെൻറ്റ് കുറച്ചുകൂടെ മാറ്റം വരുന്നു മലയാളത്തിൽ. എന്നാലും അത് ഒരു നല്ല ഇതിലേക്ക് ഇനി വരേണ്ടതുണ്ടെന്നാണ് ഞാൻ വിചാരിക്കുന്നത്. പബ്ലിഷിംഗ് രീതി അതിൻ്റെ വശത്തേക്ക് നോക്കുമ്പം കുറേ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുകളുണ്ട്.
That's very hard. He just like unleashed a flurry of expletives on the Mallu publishing industry. He took one by one every publisher and said they are assholes. It's that was very brave of Joshy to say all that. So it's really difficult to like basically publish local language stuff. And I know this personally because I thought, okay, it's just the graphic novelists who are a problem. So I went with Perumal Murugan's name and said like, okay, can we translate this to Malayalam and like publish? Madhubhumi said no straight away. Like, we don't publish graphic novels. But on the other hand, in their magazine, they have a last page where Sunil Nambu is doing a comic. But like, so I think they are trying both things. They don't want to like invest too much and like make a big deal out of it. He was basically talking about how difficult it is to get published in Malayalam in a graphic novel format. When they hear color and all, they run away, like they think of the cost and things like that. Like they really run because our local markets, especially like Kerala and Bengal and all, have good readership, but the price point is kind of low for graphic novels. So it's like a new thing. And also, we don't respect graphic novels. We still think graphic novels are for kids. I spend most of my time telling people that, adults can also try or like read it and things like that. Also, like, we are all like adults for a long time and we are making it and enjoying it and reading it also. So, a whole bunch of like old farts sitting here and like, making things not just for kids. It can be like, so I think that perception should go. Firstly, any topic, anything can be addressed through this. That's fine. Sriram, what else did he say? What else did he say? Yeah. Yeah, he got published in, translated to English, is published as Pig Flip, the book Pannivalathu, what he got out in Malayalam, which he had self-published sort of digitally and like gone around, and that's how we got it. And I'm trying to get one of the original copies from the Malayalam thing. So now it's been reprinted again. So we have the Malayalam also out now. Yeah. So from my experience also, like, yes, like Joshy, I had put up my stuff online, and I had the advantage of working in English. So at least, like, you know, all the rich people in cities who are the only audience who buy comics, you know, they can like, they like it in English, and, you know, they are all speaking English. It's cool. So I put up stuff online, and Blaft from Chennai, small publishers, they kind of found me online, and they asked me if I want to get published and everything. It was, yeah, it was out of the blue. It was nice, but it happened because I think for some time, this was in 2008, 2007, 2008. For a while, there's been this buzz that graphic novels are going to do well, or graphic novel market is going to boom or something. So the publishers were like really interested, and they want to own as much as they can in the graphic novel scene. Then they realized that, okay, this boom is not really booming. So then they're like not so sure what's happening. They have bought these books anyway. So now they do things like, you know, not really send us a clear like report at the end of the sales year, or like print books which we don't know about. You know, I seen a copy of my book from HarperCollins out there without my knowledge. It's a new edition. It's come out. This is, and I told people in HarperCollins about it, and they're not even making a face like you're making. You seem horrified, but they were not, you know, they were not. They were like, oh, okay. Like it happened to you, okay. Like that, you know. So I don't know what's happening with this publishing world. It sucks, it's stupid, you know. And obviously they have projected this fear that, oh, we're going to die, but they're not going to die. Their CEOs are getting paid like nicely and all. Only the artists are not really getting paid, writers and all. So yeah, so this is the situation, and like in that we have to survive somehow. Joshi also said it's really difficult to like survive, and it's impossible to survive as a graphic novelist in India, which I totally agree with. In France you can, but like, you know, in India it's kind of difficult. But because of our readership also, like we need people to like think that it's serious stuff, and we want to buy and like read and everything. You know, even I get a superstar like Perumal Murugan to like make a book with me, still people are like wondering whether, oh my God, look, he's here only. Oh shit. Okay, cool.
Sorry. I think there is a big difference on the comic book market between India and France. I think India can look like France like 50 years ago. Because when you say, no, 50 years, it's enough. No, because at the time of my dad, comic book were only for kids. Okay, so it's more than 50 years because my dad is 80. Let's say 80 years. You were right. And there always were some success like Tintin, Asterix, Lucky Luke, big success, but this success were really like success for kids. And there were the time, I think maybe 30 years ago, you are agree? Apopen with 30 years? Okay, so I think it's 30 years. That began to have big success of graphic novel for adults, but really big success, like hundreds of thousands books sales. So it was the beginning of the comic book industry. I think in the world there are three places where comic book are really important. It's Japan, Korea, that area. There are United States, there are France. And the comic book industry in France is huge. It brings a lot of money. There are a lot of books that are booksellers, and the authors of that booksellers live really well, like cinema stars or sing stars. And I think approximately there are like 6,000 comic book per year that are published. So obviously, if in that amount of comic book, there are the stars, and there are a lot that don't manage to live of comic book. It's quite easy to find a publisher. You can come if the project is with a correct quality. You can be published, but it's very difficult to find your public, to manage to sell books. Approximately, I would say that like the average of selling of comic book is about 2,000, 3,000. To live with that type of selling is not very easy. So if you want to live of comic book, you have to sell a lot more. To speak about me, I began with an editor, and during all that 10 years of publishing comic book, I always stayed with the same editor because I was lucky with my first comic book. I have a reasonable success, so I managed to continue with the same editor, building my career with the same person, and I'm lucky I can live off comic book. So maybe that's it. What can I say about comic book? So in 80 years, you are going to live from comic book correctly. In India, I mean.
No, but that's amazing that you're saying like 2,000 copies or something, per the print run. Because I think for us, 2,000 copies in English would be like a best-selling graphic novel or something like that. So anyway, I'm going to I think throw the floor over. We have about 5 minutes or 10 minutes for questions. I can just say I also have worked. I work with a friend. We have a small indie publishing house. We do publish comics. So I can actually tell you the secret of making a small fortune in comics. Do you know how? It's very simple. You start with a large fortune and you lose money, and then you have a small fortune. So anyway, so yeah.
Hi. For all of you, two questions actually for all of you, and one question here. And are there any non-men in your field, as small as it is? And then I think being a white guy helps a lot to meet Indians as very nice people, based on your experience that you shared. And does caste come up in your questions about love and couples? Because that's one of the biggest criteria that even the so-called love marriages in India, it's a pre-selection. Caste is a huge thing. So I'm just curious as to if caste came up already, and if not, you're talking to the wrong people for sure.
There are a lot of women in the comic scene. It's very good. There are some women who make some great stuff, and there are some women who make not so great stuff also, just like the men. But there are many grants and many international fellowships, things that none of us can apply to because we are men. So if you are South Asian woman from India, I think you should, if you don't have a job, you should move to graphic novels, because there are lots of support things, and you can just talk like, the correct things that the West wants to hear about India, and you'll get a lot of funds if you're a woman in India. Okay, so that's good. The casting I leave for him.
So I think technically this is called, it's not a panel, it's a manel. I think that's what I've heard. But anyway, no, but there are a lot of, they're not here with us right now, but there are a lot of women working. I also had the good opportunity to go to some of the indie comic fests in Kochi and in Delhi in the last 6 months. And I can tell you that the number of women creators is, pretty much, I would say 40% of the total thing, which is quite good. So in general, I would say it's in good hands. For the love and caste,
Okay. So for the first part of the question, being a white man doing interview, I think all around the world, being a white heterosexual man is like a privilege. I'm aware of that. And I think that's why when I work on my comic books, I try to talk about minorities, if we can say so, minorities. I'm aware of that privilege that I have. I don't know how did it help me here in India to get interviews. Yes, but in the same time, I was also a white guy in Korea and a white guy in Comor, and it was difficult. So I don't know. Maybe just you can say to me that it's something that can help. And on the second part of your question about caste, obviously it was a big part of my subject. Even before coming here in India, I read a lot about all that question of caste, of religion, that question of love jihad that I heard about. I met the people that are that created the Instagram account Love India Project. I made an interview. I made interview of associations that are helping couples which are fleeing from their families because they are suffering some violences. So that is a very Indian aspect of the couple, and obviously I'm talking about that.
Hi, thanks for that. Few things. One is that I actually came across adult French graphic novels or comics, so to speak, about a good 40 years back in Ahmedabad. We had, at the Alliance Française, they had an exhibition of it. And when I mean adult, really adult, out of the world adult. So, and I don't think we are going to get there in India 80 years ahead also. That sort of adult I'm talking about. Sorry? Yeah. Okay. But I had a question to you also, Joshy. എൻ്റെ മലയാളം അത്ര നന്നല്ല, ഞാൻ പറയാൻ നോക്കാം. ബോബനും മോളിയും രാമുവിൻ്റെ ലോകമൊക്കെ കുറച്ചൊരു ആ ഒരു സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്ത് തുടങ്ങിയിട്ടില്ലായിരുന്നില്ലേ നാട്ടിൽ? അപ്പോൾ സോ the comics in Kerala that, or at least the cartoon strips in Kerala, had already sort of set the ground, so to speak. E.P. Unni, O.V. Vijayan, Abu. But what I actually want to say is, Avita already had set the ground of a certain language. I'm not talking just about the drawing style, but also a certain, the Kerala cynicism that comes. That and I'm presuming that has influenced your work. I'm not sure as much your work, but the question I really have for all of you, and I'm asking this because I'm a design historian and I look at things like this in that sense, is how much does style and narrative, what is the sort of intersection between that? Like, do you go with your style, which say Boban and Molly had one style all the time, but that was because it was a strip. But when you switch from one narrative to the other, how much does the style change? Not just the visual style, but also the narration style.
ചോദിച്ചത് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ബോബനും മോളിയും ഞാൻ ചെയ്തതായിട്ട് എങ്ങനെ വ്യത്യാസം വരുന്നു, എങ്ങനെ വ്യത്യാസപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു?
അതല്ല ഒന്ന് ആ ഒരു that had already set the ground for a certain language that was happening in Kerala, right? That is one. The second question, the real question is, how much does the style, that is the visual style, and the narration, how much are they interconnected? ഇപ്പം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരു പുതിയൊരു സ്റ്റോറി ചെയ്യണമെന്നുണ്ട്, അതിൽ നിങ്ങൾ മുഴുവന് നിങ്ങളുടെ സ്റ്റൈല് ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്യോ? ഹൗ മച്ച്, നോട്ട് ജസ്റ്റ് ദ വിഷ്വൽ സ്റ്റൈൽ ബട്ട് ഓൾസോ സ്റ്റോറി ടെല്ലിംഗ് സ്റ്റൈൽ?
അതിൽ ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ആലോചിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യം എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ, നമ്മൾ കുറച്ച് വർക്കുകളെ കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇപ്പം ഗ്രാഫിക് നോവലായാലും ഞാൻ ആനിമേഷൻ ഫീൽഡിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അവിടുന്ന് ഈ പുറത്തുനിന്നുള്ള കുറച്ച് ഗ്രാഫിക് നോവലുകൾ കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ കണ്ടപ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായത് എന്ത് നമുക്ക് പരീക്ഷിക്കാൻ പറ്റും. അതാണ് എനിക്കതിൽ നിന്ന് മനസ്സിലായത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ രീതിയിൽ തന്നെ ചെയ്യണമെന്നില്ല, നമുക്ക് എന്തും ചെയ്യാം. അപ്പം ഈ പറഞ്ഞ അരവിന്ദൻ്റെ വർക്കുകളായാലും ടോംസിൻ്റെ ഒക്കെ ആയാലും അതൊക്കെ നമ്മളെ സ്വാധീനിക്കുന്നുണ്ട് ഉറപ്പായിട്ടും. തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും എല്ലാ വർക്കുകളും നമ്മളെ സ്വാധീനിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. കണ്ട എല്ലാ വർക്കുകളും വായിച്ചെല്ലാം നമ്മളെ എപ്പോഴേക്കോ എങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ സ്വാധീനിക്കുന്നുണ്ട് ഉറപ്പായിട്ടും. പിന്നെ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടതും നമ്മുടെ അനുഭവങ്ങളൊക്കെ സ്വാധീനിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ എൻ്റെ ഒരു കാഴ്ചപ്പാടിൽ ഞാൻ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ അത് ഫോഴ്സ്ഫുള്ളി ആലോചിക്കാറുമുണ്ട്. കാരണം നമ്മൾ ഇതുവരെ കണ്ടതും ഒക്കെ മാറ്റി വെക്കണം. നമ്മൾ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ മാറ്റി വെക്കുക, എന്നിട്ട് എനിക്ക് എന്താണോ ചെയ്യാൻ തോന്നുന്നത് ചെയ്യുക, അത്രേ ഉള്ളൂ. അത് എന്നെ കൊണ്ട് പറ്റുന്ന മാക്സിമം നന്നാക്കി ഞാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുക. അതിന് സമയം എത്ര വേണമെങ്കിലും എടുക്കുക, കൂടുതൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്യണം. ചിലപ്പോൾ വരച്ച്, ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു ടെക്നിക്കലി പറഞ്ഞാൽ വരച്ച കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമുക്ക് തൃപ്തിയായാലും മാറ്റി കളയേണ്ടി വരും, വീണ്ടും എഴുതി നോക്കേണ്ടി വരും. അപ്പോൾ അതിന് മാക്സിമം നമ്മളെ കൊണ്ട് പറ്റുന്നത്ര അധ്വാനിക്കുക. നമുക്ക് ഏറ്റവും നന്നായി ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും തോന്നുന്ന രീതിയിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും ശ്രമിക്കുക. അതാണ് ഞാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പറഞ്ഞ സ്വാധീനം ഉണ്ടാവുമെന്നൊക്കെ പറയാൻ ഇല്ലെന്നൊക്കെ ഒരിക്കലും പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അത് തന്നെ എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളൂ. നമ്മൾ എൻ്റെതായ രീതിയിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നു. സ്വാധീനം ഉണ്ടാവാണ്ടിരിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ആലോചിക്കുന്നു. അതുണ്ടാവും, തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും ഉണ്ടാവും. അപ്പോൾ പിന്നെ ഞാൻ ആലോചിക്കുന്നത്, നമുക്കൊരു ആശയം കിട്ടുമ്പോൾ അത് പറയാനുള്ള രീതി നമുക്ക് തന്നെ ഉണ്ടായി വരും. അങ്ങനെയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ആ വഴിക്കാൻ നിന്ന് കൊടുത്താൽ മതി. അങ്ങനെയാണല്ലോ ഓരോ പുതിയ രീതി ഉണ്ടാവുന്നത്. അങ്ങനെയാണല്ലോ. നമ്മൾ അനുകരിക്കുന്നല്ല അതിന് പറയാം. അനുകരണം എങ്ങനെയും ഉണ്ട്. എന്നാലും നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ രീതി ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുക. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ രീതി ഉണ്ടായി വരുമായിരിക്കും. അങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ വിചാരിക്കുന്നു.
അതായത് പറഞ്ഞെന്നു വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പൊതുവെ I think what I took from that is that he's been open to influences. He's worked in animation before. You should watch A Coconut Tree, an animation. It's a national award winning animation film by Joshy. Last year it won. So you can see the different styles that he's picked for that. I think what he said is like, yes, he's been influenced by many things, but he's also feeling like he can do whatever and it won't be wrong. He can do anything when the story is with him to express, and he found that kind of like freeing, that he can just do it in the way that I don't think he's trying to like follow any style like you said. In fact, I think that the satire and the humor in Bobbin and Molly and all have influenced me more than him. I feel that connect a lot, the satire especially, and that is the Mallu humor that we keep talking about. I try to bring it into the political comics, so only Mallus get it. But like, yeah. So I think the rest was about the process, about like, I think how it should suit. What I would also say is that how the style should suit or preempt the kind of narrative that we are going to put out. It's like in a movie, you start the movie and the music tells you that, oh, it's a horror movie or it's a fantasy jingoistic adventure or something from the beginning itself. So can we bring that kind of a mood with a few like visual elements in the beginning to just get you into that zone? I think that's what I would try to do also. Anyone else want to answer the question?
Hello. Jay, only one small quick question. That is about the cost and break even of like anybody who is publishing in India. This market is very baby. I mean, it's an infant state. So what is the numbers we are looking at? How many copies would break even the basic cost at least, or who is the target audience your people are having as a publisher now? Though you call it adult, who's the target?
There is no target audience. We're just shooting blindly, and like whoever hits, like it hits. That's all.
Give me a break.
Yeah, I want to talk about publishing also, because I do that also. I self-publish my books as well, and the person sitting next to you can give you a very good like insight on that, I think. But yeah, if it's color, it's more expensive, so the break-even point is higher. But if you're smart, you'll print offset, and you won't go and do digital print and then try to like cover that. So yeah, 1,000 plus it has to be for like it to make any sense. So like you said, it'll be in your bedroom.
So I had the good fortune of launching a book in February 2020. So you can imagine how many copies. I sleep on them. I made a bed with all the copies and I sleep. So no. I mean, the other problem is you also have a price point issue. Like, I think minimum you have to put it around like 400 rupees for like say 80 pages or something like that. So how feasible is that price point, which is equivalent to 1 month's Netflix or something, right? So to a consumer, I mean, you have to be realistic. How many copies are you going to move? What I did find out is that in Kochi and in Delhi and so on, at least in the younger generation, like 2025, there's like a saturation in this digital content. So there is some interest in owning a physical artifact. So they don't mind spending that money just to own something which looks good, which feels good. So that's there. I've been told that we are almost out of time. So I think there was one gentleman in the back had a question, and I think I'll just you can just close the thing about the design. I think there was you brought up something on the design aspect as well, and how much of that is what is the interaction between them?
It has to be a quick answer. Okay. The question of style is something very important, and for a long time I was thinking and trying to intellectualize that. And I discovered that your style, you don't have to intellectualize that. You have just to make the way you have to do. For example, I always compare it to when you write with your letters. You don't try to do an A in a certain way. You write because you have to write. So that the way I discovered my style, and I'm not questioning anymore about that question of style. I just do the way that I can with all my limits, technical limits, with all my personality when I want to tell something. And that's the only way I can do. So that was my quick answer.
Hi, this is the question for like the whole panel. So I wanted to ask, since there's been a lot of debate about censorship recently in India, so I wanted to ask, how do you deal with that in your work as comic artists and such? Because comics are supposed to be, talking about the future and talking about something new. So how do you deal with censorship? That was my question.
Maybe it would be more interesting to listen to Joe, because in France we don't have that type.
I mean, personally, the only thing.
That was my question, like censorship in India, because you also mentioned you've been writing comics about India as well. So how are you dealing with censorship laws in India? That was my question for all of you.
I'm here for 1 month and a half, and I'm working for a French publisher. And the thematic that I am exploring here for the French market or French government, it's not a problem. I don't know if what I'm doing here would be published in India, there would be any kind of censure. I don't know, maybe on the aspect of love jihad that I talked previously, but for the French market, there is no really. In France, the censure it's not an issue. The freedom of, how do we say, of speaking yes, free speech is very high. Sometimes there can be a lot of critics about one type of humor, some pressures. It can be some pressures, like Charlie Hebdo. I don't know if you know the newspaper Charlie Hebdo. It's a political newspaper, but I think nothing compares to India. But I don't know in India, so.
I mean, personally, we had a book coming out in German and then in English in India. So the German cover had, technically, you could see a nipple of a woman. Technically, I'm not sure. So when it came to India, there was like a long discussion. How is that a nipple? Can it be concealed? And it was concealed. So apart from that, I don't think, I mean, I have not personally faced anything, but I think for you, maybe.
See, comics are for kids in India, so why should you want to put anything nasty in the narrative for kids? So we should not. So we keep it very clean, and there's no nudity or nothing there. So then it's okay. But I think this question comes right now a lot more because a lot of publishers and artists are suddenly conscious of censorship because of the political situation. I've just put together a book that my publisher said cannot be published. After she had agreed to everything, you send it to the legal team and everything. There's too much backlash and too much control from the center about what you can say and what, especially when it comes in print. This, what I was planning is a collection of the work that I have online. So I've released all of them over the last, from 2014 onwards. So it's a collection from 2014 to 24. And they said they can't publish it because it's not the right environment for it. So yes, there will be more clampdowns, and we're in a very tough situation right now. Lots of awards have been cut. A lot of funding has been cut. A lot of NGOs have been, the funding there also has been cut. So the narrative is getting narrower and narrower, and it will be much more difficult to say what you want to say without censoring yourself in the future or immediately in the future. So yeah, we're in a pretty weird state right now. Joshy has anything to say on censorship? Joshy does not approve of censorship, okay?
അല്ല, അങ്ങനെ ഒരു സെൻസർഷിപ്പിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഇഷ്യൂ ഞാൻ ഇതുവരെ ഫേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല. അതുകൊണ്ട് അതിനെപ്പറ്റി എനിക്കൊന്നും പറയാൻ ഇല്ല. ഒരു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് ഇല്ലാത്തൊരു കാര്യത്തെപ്പറ്റി ഇങ്ങനെ പറയാം.
He condemns censorship completely.
I think that's a good note to end the session. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inspiring us with how visuals can speak beyond words, and sincere thanks to our partners for supporting regional narratives and powerful storytelling.